Depending on where you grew up, you might call it filter coffee, drip coffee, or even just coffee. But in parts of the world where espresso coffee is what we grew up on, like here in Australia, often the only experience people have with this type of coffee is from an airline or watching an American sitcom. If that's you, your only experience of filter coffee is some weird, insipid black liquid. Then today we want to help you make something that actually tastes really, really good. We'll do that with a device like this, a batch brewer. I'll show you what you need and how to get the best out of it right after this. Hey, it's Josh from the Coffee Science and Education Centre. Today is all about how we get tasty coffee out of this little fella, the batch brewer. We call it a batch brewer because it makes multiple cups of coffee all at once. In this case, up to 2 litres. The coffee it makes is similar to what you can get from a single cup device like the V60, but while these single cup brewers are great if you're drinking alone, they are not super practical if you've got a caffeine deprived family or you need to serve it up quick in the cafe setting. Of course, if you need even bigger quantities, there are commercial brewers that can make enough coffee to wake up a whole village. But for many people, a brewer this size is a good place to start. So while we're talking about black coffee, a question that often comes up is why not drink espresso or its watered down sibling, the long black, aka the Cafe Americano. They do really taste quite different. Espresso brewing uses a more coarse metal filter, which means more of the fine particles come through into the cup. The end result is a thicker, heavier coffee with less clarity than paper filtered coffee. Now, I'm not here to start any espresso or filter coffee fights. I enjoy both, they're just different. Clearly, you need a batch brewer, but they're not all created equal. You'll get the best results if you find one that has a good temperature control, can brew to Gold Cup standards, we'll get to that shortly, and has a thermal decanter. Perhaps the best known brand in this category is the Mocha Master. While it is a quality brewer and has that really cool 70s styling, we're not going to use that. We're going to instead use the Breville Precision Brewer. We have compared 5 of these brewers on our website. I'll link to that in the description if you want to see the pros and cons of each. Whichever brewer you choose, the process I'll take you through is essentially the same. Next, you'll need a grinder. Sure, pre-ground coffee works, but you'll get a more vibrant flavor and aroma if you grind fresh. A grinder like the Baratza Forte or the Breville Smart Grinder Pro are 2 really good options, but in reality, most electric burr grinders will do the job just fine. Water quality often gets overlooked in coffee brewing. However, it does have a very big impact on the finished product. At the very least, use water that's been filtered to remove the obvious flavor taints like chlorine, or take it to that next level by taking a look at our research on water chemistry. Link in the description. Finally, the coffee. The type of coffee you choose will depend on personal preference. However, most coffees designed for filter brewing tend to be a lighter roast than the average espresso blend. One of the keys to brewing great coffee is understanding your brew ratio. That is, the ratio of coffee to the water that we put into the machine. This is something you can experiment with, but I suggest starting with the Gold Cup ratio of 60 grams of coffee per litre of water recommended by the Specialty Coffee Association. This is a very good starting point and gives good results with most coffees. This is a ratio so we can just adjust this up or down as needed. For example, if I want half a batch, I'll use 30 grams of coffee and 500 mils of water. If I want more, I can double this up to 120 grams of coffee and use 2 litres of water. But for this example, I'm going to use 60 grams of this single origin Rwanda Sovu coffee. It is juicy and sweet, and I cannot wait to taste this coffee again. We then need to grind the coffee to what's often called a medium or filter grind. It is coarser than espresso grind and finer than what you would use for a French press or cold brew. Some people describe the consistency like table salt or sand. In truth, I've never found these descriptions particularly helpful. The fact is, measuring grind size by appearance is really difficult. So instead, we'll focus on dialing in the grind after we have brewed our first batch of coffee. I'll explain this in just a minute. The Breville Precision Brewer has two filter options. I'm using the cone-shaped filter, which is suitable for batches up to 1.2 litres. There's also a flat bottom basket, which can brew batches up to 1.8 litres. Now to brew a batch, I'm going to add ground coffee to a paper filter, add 1 litre of filtered water, set the dial to gold cup, and let's go. Oh, and don't forget the carafe. So we have brewed our first batch and it's tasting okay, but it's a little thin with a slightly sour acidity and not the sweetness that I'm looking for, that I'm used to in this coffee. Now these are all symptoms of a very under-extracted brew. Just like with any brewing method, the amount of soluble material that we can extract from the coffee doesn't only affect the strength of the coffee, it also affects the balance of sweetness, acidity, and bitterness. If we don't extract enough from the ground coffee, it will not only be thin and weak, but also overly acidic and sour. If we extract too much from the ground coffee, the strength will improve, but the balance will become overly bitter and dry. So we're literally aiming for that sweet spot, the spot in the middle where we have maximum sweetness, with a nice balance of acidity and bitterness. A number of factors influence extraction, but in this case, we're going to focus on the grind size. As we grind finer, this allows the water to get in and extract more from the ground coffee. So for my under-extracted brew, I'm going to adjust the grinder a little finer and try brewing a fresh batch. Round 2, let's see how this tastes. Now that is more like it. It's fuller with a nice juicy sweetness, the one that I know and love. Of course, we don't have to stop there. We can try going finer again. The balance will change each time that we do, but at some point that bitterness will start to dominate the flavors and we'll know that we've gone a touch too far. But before we finish up, there is one mistake that I often see that all the time, and this will ruin a batch of even the most expensive coffee. Dirty equipment. If you don't thoroughly clean out the thermal carafe and the filter basket, the residue of rancid old coffee is going to taint every batch you brew. So get some good coffee cleaner, fill the carafe with hot water and give it a quick scrub. For the basket, remove it from the brewer and wash it out. That's our introduction to batch brewing. Hit us up with your questions below and tell us what brewing method you want to learn about next. Until next time, have a fantastic day. See ya.